Hi, I'm Thomas, and today I want to talk about when to use columns, rows, or even the new functionality, the grid option inside the group block, and to give you some ideas when it is best to use whether the one solution or the another solution. First of all, we want to have a look at the most basic one, the column, because this is a quick and easy win if it not comes down to having too much control over certain breakpoint settings. For that, I will jump in my backend here real quick. So here we have the page, and here I have the pre-built structures. So first of all, let's talk a bit about the column. The column is, as I told you, a quick and easy solution when you just simply want to put some items into columns next to each other, and you don't want to mess around with too much of the responsive settings. There are obviously breakpoint depending settings, but yeah, they're very straightforward. In some way, for the first glance, it might be a bit limiting, but you can achieve quite interesting layouts still with the column block. So first of all, Greyd enhances every core block. And the same we does here with the column block. So on the parent container, you have obviously the options to change the background elements, set up an overlay, choose from one of the existing patterns, or even upload your own pattern. For the parent block, we have separators, animation, and some advanced options as well. But the magic is behind the child blocks here. So when we go down into the next layer here to one child block, you can set specific breakpoint settings if you need to. If you don't need to, just leave it to automatically, which means the system tries to set every element next to each other to a certain breakpoint. If you need to change that, you obviously can. Just click on the little icons, and here you have your 12 column grid to change the behavior specific to a breakpoint. The one downside when it comes to the columns block, and why I personally always use the row block itself, so the row variation of a group block, is it's not that easy to stretch each and every column to the same height. You obviously can do that through the option here in the child blocks, stretch to fill. But what if my layout structure depends on that I use nested elements inside and use there, for example, a custom background, whether it's an image or it's a custom color. With a column, it's difficult. Therefore, I use another option, the row block. And with the row block, out of the box in vanilla block editor in vanilla WordPress, you get some options. So as you see here, it's just a variation of the group block. And you have obviously the possibility to allow to wrap to multiple lines when the elements inside doesn't have enough space. So you're very limited and sometimes. To enhance the capabilities of the row block and the entire group block, Greyd has some features, or included some features, especially when it comes down to the width control. So in here I have nested stack, just another variation of the group block. So to the normal additions here for actions, to hide something on page load or to animate an element, we have included additional width controls. Down here, you can set up for each and every group block, whether it's row variation or stack or even grid, you have additional width controls here. And you cannot only set up your own custom CSS calculation, you can use more. Here, for example, we have fluid, which means you have a minimum value and a max value, and the value will automatically calculate it in between. Or you just use min of 2 values, max of 2 values, or, such in my case, custom. Because here I have for me personal a custom CSS variable where I can change basically the layout really easy, and it works in every breakpoint because these settings are breakpoint specific. And the breakpoints, by the way, you can control completely in Greyd through the Greyd styles, which I'm currently in the site editor here. On the grid, you have all these specific breakpoints, and you can change them at any time in the project. So let's jump back to the block settings here, and let's have a look what we actually can do with this custom CSS snippet here. And I will enlarge it a bit. So for example, here I can just simply change the value to 50%, going to the next element here and change it as well to 50%. So I have a 50-50 column, and down below the next stack will automatically be stretched, because not only had I set the width probably, but I can control here with the vanilla width settings to give an object the option to fill the entire space when there is no other object in the way. So let's just reset the setting here real quick for 33 and again 33. So, and I just rebuilt my original structure. And this, as I already told you, you can set up specifically for each and every breakpoint. Down below, I have a bit more of a complex structure because I need to change just my image here. So I nested another row inside, and here I used an image, and I used here a headline and a text block, and I want to specifically control the width of the image over all breakpoints. So normally from an image has a width and a height, but it's a min width, or sorry, it's a max width, to be clear. So which means when the object doesn't have enough space around him, it shrinks down. If you want to control these properly, just put it in a group block, and again, with our enhanced width controls, just set a minimum width. So it is specifically set that this object cannot be under 45 pixels. So we have complete control over that. Again, you can set this for any breakpoint individually. This means you have a really, really high flexibility when it comes to breakpoint specific layouts inside the row block. I mean, you could even build like bento grids just relying on stacks and row. But there is another option. Let's talk a bit about grid. Grid is the newest option or the newest variation inside the group options here. So it's the last one. And from a vanilla standpoint, it's still very, very limited in its settings. So what you can do is obviously you can set the layout type to auto and set up a minimum column width. So no column can be less or the width can be less than 20 rem currently. Okay, which is nice. Looks nice on the screen here. But this is just a minimum column width. So this means you can control out of the box the max amount of columns. I did this currently using a helper class. I'll show you in a minute. So I just want to delete the helper class real quick to show what I mean. I reload the entire screen here, and now as you see I have 4 columns already because my screen is so wide. And if I increase the screen resolution even more, there will be 5 columns, 6 columns, and so on. So I don't have any control. I could obviously switch to manual mode and set it up specifically to 3 columns, which means on a tablet, on a smartphone as well, there are still 3 columns. So yeah, you don't have control again over breakpoints, because from a vanilla standpoint, the block editor has 1 breakpoint at 600 pixels. So to get rid of this problem, I'll included a custom helper class, which I called GridMax3. So it's obvious what it does. And I switched back to auto. In the site editor itself, I did set up some additional CSS. And I scroll down here, and here are my helper classes. So I can tackle the most common grid layouts here. And this specifically is targeted through a media query with a min width of 1199 pixels. So I cover or I include almost all standard netbooks and notebooks. So what this help class does is I still have a flexible minimum column width, but I have a total amount of max columns over 1200 pixels. This gives you the flexibility you want from a grid block. And the grid block with these helper classes is completely usable for each and every layout, and it's really easy, especially when we're thinking about building a website for a client later on, and the client maybe want to change the order of some boxes or include a new box into a grid like this. Because here you set up the width of each column on the outer block. In the other example here, which is more flexible at the end of the day, but as well more complex, obviously for the content created later on, because here you have to set up the width per breakpoint inside each and every child element. And back again to the easiest version, which is the columns block here. So here you can specifically, and now I have to put the image back down. So here you can specifically, again, target the width through each and every column, which is here, again, a child block. You have set it up over and over again. So when we're talking about easy to use solutions, if you just want to make sure that your layout is, for example, a 3-column grid, and you don't want to set anything up inside the child blocks, and you want an easy and quick fix, you can use the column, because with that after, just type in the column and you already get a preset. And in this case, I want to use a 3x3. Just enlarge the column to the white width here, so I can work with that. And normally by standard, you can set up here the breakpoint behavior. It is still three column layout until you reach the smartphone, then it will be stacked. All right, I almost forgot another addition, a neat one, through Greyd into the columns block is, and that's obviously as well a reason when to use the columns block, is because we cannot only set up the width for each and every column, we can as well change the stacking order. So normally from left to right, everything gets stacked down below. If you want to change this to emphasize, for example, the middle column in here, you can do that by just changing the order of the column here. So it is position 1 on a smartphone, position 1 again on a tablet, and on a standard notebook, it will be position 2, and it inherits it to every other breakpoint after that. So that's the last thing I want to talk about when it comes down to columns. So to wrap things up, columns, quick and easy fix if you don't want to change anything. If you want to change anything, you can work with the 12-column grid here. You can even set up a stacking order individually for each and every breakpoint. The row block itself, very flexible. You can use REM, percent, pixels, whatever for the width control. It's completely breakpoint dependent. You can nest it very well. Or you can nest the elements very well next to each other because it's a flex box, so you don't have a shrinking 12-column grid. You can utilize all the space you have in your layout. And when it comes down to a really easy fix, and you want to make it really easy for the content creator later on, you could use the grid option, but this relies still on a helper class to set, for example, the max amount of columns on a desktop breakpoint. I hope this helps you to get the idea when to use which solution in your layout, and I'll see you soon.
For more videos and information, please visit our Help Center.